How you doing? You already, man. I was just now looking at a spill that one of the homies pushed me, man. And the dude, 1090 Jake, is giving his commentary, on this alleged paperwork that was supposed to have mysteriously surfaced now on the brother Larry Hoover, right? And so let me say this, man. This is the reason why I say it's imperative for us to pay attention to what's going on out here. And for those who only live that life and who are cut from that cloth should have the authority, right? Because people want to talk about what have you done and what have you accomplished, and because they have commodified the stories of our lifestyles into a way for them to make money, right? So that they can become accomplished because we live those lifestyles, we are accomplished. They bragging about us. Nevertheless, I'm watching the guy 1090 Jake, man, and, he's going off into his, commentary, giving his spill about what he think about this, this debacle, if you will, with this paperwork concerning the brother Larry Hoover's name. And so 1090 Jake has no standing, again, to speak to that. And then he's speaking into it in a way as if he has, validated information, or as if he has some real legitimate concrete facts that the brothers and sisters subscribe to with regard to the street ideology, the paperwork. The paperwork this man is referring to is a newspaper clipping, y'all. Come on, man. Like, let's stop that. You know what I mean? Let's stop that. Him and Wack 100 are referring to a newspaper clipping out of the Chicago Tribune that, states that, upon arrest, Larry Hoover was supposed to have made a statement. You understand what I'm saying? Now, we got to take into context the times, you know what I mean, when that incident allegedly had happened. The powers that be, the temperament of them at the time, racism was rampant back then. You understand what I'm saying? So you already know police corruption was rampant back then. So we have to take all that into the context of our, analyzing the facts in this regard. Because you're not going to come to me, or those who know with no newspaper, talking about this is the paperwork you got. Sad to say, a lot of dudes used to get caught in that trick bag until those who knew better, stepped up and said something about it. The newspaper has a vested interest in the outcome of the public's perception. They are in tandem with the powers that be, the government. Not only that, the newspaper has to sell newspapers, and sensationalism always sells newspapers. And so I'm going to give a more in-depth spill about this because I'm out here working right now, but we definitely going to touch on that because, like I said, dudes like 1090 Jake and his ilk, they don't have no standing to speak to our realities or to speak to our history. They don't. He's the police officer. He's an agent provocateur. Him, Wack 100, Charleston White, all these dudes, the females, Sexy Red, and all these dudes are moles implanted into our culture to try to obliterate that shit from the inside. They wanted to implode, y'all, and you have to stay awake. Now, all of a sudden, they come out with newspaper clippings talking about Larry Hoover supposed to told on a motherfucker. I'm not saying that he couldn't, or, that's not a possibility. We know that any and everything is a possibility. Ain't no one individual bigger than, you understand what I'm saying, the ideology as it relates to street culture and street law? No, we not saying that. But if you're going to sell an OG, right, in any regard, somebody who stood 10 toes down in the negativity that he believed was his way of finding liberation for his people, because it was negative. I got to keep it real. Any type of game, activity, that shit is crazy, straight negative. You understand what I'm talking about? That's the work of the shaitan. That's just what it is. But even in that, he wasn't a hypocrite. And so that's what we looking at. They are always trying to sell, you see what I'm saying, our greats in any regard. They don't want to talk about how he reformed himself, you know what I mean, and start, speaking to reforming the communities and speaking to brothers, not becoming gangsters because they had negativity to bring to the medium, but becoming gangsters because they wanted to uplift and try to, you know, redevelop and reform their communities. People don't want to speak about that. They want to hold them to something that happened in the 60s, bruh. This man been in prison for 50 years, since 1973. In solitary confinement for 30 years, right? I mean, I thought this was a different time with a different temperament of humanity, right? You know, Trump did his part. Let's not feed into this, you know, whatever it is, man, that the powers that be is setting into place, because they everywhere, y'all. They look like us, man. They ain't only coming with the badge. They have hidden agendas, man. People who are capitalistic upon the backs of others, man. You understand what I'm talking about? So let's stay awake, man. Let's not let people like 1090 Jake. This dude's the police in both of his names. Like 1090, you can't trust him because he's doing some flip shit. And then he the Jake. Come on, man. Let's stay woke, man. You already know, man. I'ma holler at you later.